4,329. That's the number of days ago today. I was in a meeting like this when everyone had on their name tags, kind of like this. And when you go to these training sessions and seminars, you get your name tag, and then as soon as the meeting is over, you go to the back, you take the name tag and do what? Right. So I get to the back of the room, and this is what I see. Now I want you to take a look into this image and just kind of yell some answers out. What do you see? Trash. What else do you see? Names.
Wasted opportunities.
Aha, wasted opportunities, says the salesperson, right? Can you take me down a little bit on the volume, please? Yeah, wasted opportunities, potential customers. And this is an interesting question. What do you see when you see people? When a customer walks into the front door, what do you see? Is it just a person? Is it a potential sale? Is it an opportunity? Is it a commitment waiting to happen? What do you see? That's one of those big questions that all of us have to ask. And so when I looked into this trash can 12 years ago, there was a question that I asked, and this is the question I've asked my whole life, most likely the question that has given my parents gray hair. What could I do in this moment that would be the exact opposite of everyone else? Anyone know someone who asked this question? I'm that guy. And so the answer to that question, if everybody else rips off their name tags and throws them away, what would the answer be? Right, leave it on all day. So I run this experiment. I'm going to leave a name tag on all day. And I go out and about. I start kind of walking around, and instantly people started saying hello and starting up conversations. And all these cute girls from across the hall were like, "Hey, Scott." Greatest day of my life. So I probably met like 20 people on one day, and all I did was wear a name tag. And so I get back home, and I'm brushing my teeth, looking at the name tag in the mirror, which backwards is tox. And a couple thoughts are running through my mind. Number one, wow, you wear a name tag and people are friendlier. That was kind of easy. And then I start cranking the entrepreneur brain, and I think, well, if wearing a name tag was so effective for one day, I wonder if it would work every day. And then on Tuesday, November 2nd of 2000 at 9:51 p.m., I made the crucial decision of my entire career. I vowed that I would wear a name tag all day, every day, for the rest of my life. Sometimes two. That's how I roll. So if my name is Scott and all of you have these red cards, that would make you guys who?
Scott's friend.
See, you just force people to be your friends. That's the first rule of being approachable. Just tell them, no, we're friends. End of story. It works until you get a restraining order. But I've been doing this now for 12 years, and I'm proud to say that I've been apparently selected as the world's foremost expert on the topic of, take a guess. Yeah, don't act like you're not impressed. My mom doesn't. How many of you have kids? Okay, cool. I don't, but I have parents, so I kind of see how it works. Because as a Jewish mother, she's not just my parent, she's my publicist. And so everywhere we go, she has to tell everyone, my son is 32 years old. Did you know he was inducted into the Hall of Fame of Ripley's Believe It or Not for, take a guess.
Okay.
How would you feel if that was your kid? Let's see if you can spot the typo in the book, Ripley's Believe It or Not. Scott Ginsberg of St. Louis, Illinois. Anyone catch it? St. Louis is in what state? Missouri. They're confusing it with an infamous city that makes the news a lot called East St. Louis. In my experience, not the kind of place you want to be wearing a name tag. So Ripley's Believe It or Not, you've maybe seen like the comic strips or the show with Superman. Let's just say what we're all thinking right now. Who are the types of people featured on Ripley's Believe It or Not? Freaks, yes. People like this and this guy, my uncle. So I know you're kind of looking at me like, who is this weird guy that wears a name tag every day? Well, I'm really not the weird one. That's the best part about being a human being, is there's always someone weirder than you. And so as we get started, I have to sort of confess that wearing a name tag every day, it's really not much of an accomplishment. But when you leverage a simple idea into a successful enterprise, that is. And so take a look very closely. This is not a badge. This is a brand. And the purpose of this session is to talk about the approachability of your brand. That's what I've done for 12 years. I've somehow miraculously turned a name tag into an entire career. And so I'm here this morning to tell one story. It's the only story I tell, and I'm the only person who can tell it. But the secret is the story that I'm going to tell you today, it's not just a story, it's a mirror. Because I want you to think about your story, and more importantly, your store, and what you do on a daily basis. Because there's a number that is haunting everyone in this room. Anyone know what 107 is? I had to find this online this morning. I had to Google number of shopping days left. Ooh. And there's a website like dedicated to it. It's like the Millennium Countdown thing. 107. So 25 to 39% of most retail sales will happen in the next 107 days. This is the crucial time for what you do. And that's why you come to this show. The Smart Jewelry Show is the best in the industry because of the sessions like this, because of the trade show, the networking, and the opportunity to hang with the people that do what you do and to find out what works. And so this particular image, you'll be seeing this a lot today and other presentations and on the floor. This is the theme. It's the holiday theme. I got some particular music I wanted to pick just for today. I know it's a little early, but I'm just a huge Michael Bublé fan. So this is a very Bublé Christmas. Isn't it amazing? Some retail stores are already playing Christmas music. They are. Sam's Club, Costco. I know. But why not? It's early. It triggers the memories. 107 days. And so we're here to celebrate the holidays, but also to think about what's going to happen in those next 107 days. So when you see this slide today during this presentation, it's when, during the story that I'm telling you, we're going to stop and give you a chance to talk to each other. I don't think of this as much of a presentation as an opportunity for you guys to share with each other. Because instead of hearing one person yap, you get to share with everybody. And we're going to tap the wisdom of the group this morning. Because I'm just one guy. I'm 32 years old. How much could I possibly know? I don't work in the jewelry industry. I'm a writer. I don't know anything about jewelry. I don't even wear jewelry. Although my girlfriend does. And we're going to get married soon. So if anyone knows a good jeweler, just see me afterwards. This is the part where every time I've done a jewelry show, someone comes running down the aisle, call my store! You can talk to me later. So this is the sort of theme for today. And I just wanted you to appreciate how much my Jewish mother loves this image. I sent her a bunch of copies of In-Store magazine. She thought it was great. She put it on the fridge. Everyone at the temple loves it. And so the question today is not to think about should you wear a name tag. Because the reality is you already do. All of you. Anyone who works in retail or any industry, we all wear name tags every day, all the time, everywhere. Because all the name tag is an identifier that sort of broadcasts who we are to the world. It's impossible not to do that. And so the question should really be, what's your name tag? What is it that you or your store or your enterprise or your business, what is it that you do that's all of these things? Because upon closer inspection, a name tag isn't really a name tag. Number one, it's a social network. One of the interesting experiences of wearing a name tag is all the crazy people you meet. I was out to dinner a couple years ago, and I was sort of focusing on my meal, and you know when there's like a bunch of kids in your presence, but you don't see them, but you can feel them staring at you? And I look over, and there's all these kids just staring there, and the one in the green, their leader, he looks over, and he says something that you never want an 8-year-old boy to say to you in the middle of a crowded restaurant. My daddy said he saw a picture of you on the internet. Whew. Which picture? And I look in the back and I see his dad, who is a guy that I think I'd actually met once at a seminar. And I said, oh, okay. And they're kind of looking at me, and I don't have any kids. I kind of don't know what to do. So I just start giving them free name tags because kids like free stuff. And they start sticking them on their foreheads and have a good time with it. And I'm sort of watching this interaction happen. And it occurred to me that I started wearing a name tag 12 years ago, pre-Facebook, pre-Twitter, any of that stuff. So this was a social network before there was a social network. And in an increasingly digital and online world, the purpose of online is to get offline. Face-to-face is making a comeback. And so here's something I want you to think about. Do you have an analog friend request? You don't need Facebook to make friends with people. You can do it looking them in the eye and shaking their hand when they walk into your store. That's the real social network. A name tag isn't a name tag, that's a permission slip. I've probably had 10,000 sort of micro interactions with people that I've evaluated in a body of research as to what it means about human behavior. And the one that I always like to share is from a bus going home from the airport to get the rental car. So it's full of people, and I'm get the last seat, and this one guy comes on covered in snow, and there is sort of some space next to me, and he looks over at my name tag and he says, "Scott, do you mind if I sit next to you?" And everyone kind of chuckles on the bus, and I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And he looks up at the people that were like laughing at him, and he said, "What's so funny? Scott's the only guy on the bus I know." You know, for a long time I've heard people say it's not what you know, it's... Then I've heard people say it's not who you know, it's who knows. But now I think a better answer would be it's not who knows you, it's whose life is better because they know you. It's whose life is better because you love them. So are your customers' lives better because they've interacted with you? That's the permission slip that you give people to engage with you. And so this ongoing experiment that I've done, it's not unlike what you do every day. How many of you are in an actual physical brick and mortar retail store every day? Okay, cool. A lot of people. Over 50%. So you get to run these experiments every day, and it's the best because every interaction is an experiment to learn more about what people want and what's important to them and how they buy. And so this is my experiment. What's yours? You know, I've been doing this for so long, it's like being in a cartoon strip because all these crazy things happen. And every one of them is an opportunity. I was buying donuts once, and this homeless guy was right outside, and I got a bunch of donuts, and he says, "Hey, Scott, can you spare some change for some food?" And I said, "Actually, would you like a box of donuts?" And he said, "Sorry, Scott, I don't eat sweets." Whatever happened to beggars can't be choosers, right? Another time, when I moved to New York, the first week I'm there, I almost get killed by a traffic accident because in New York, if you've ever been there, the drivers, they're not bad drivers, they're just goal-oriented. So like the construction guy like pulls me out of the way before almost getting sideswiped, and he looks over and he goes, "Hey, Scott, in New York, stoplights are a suggestion." This thing saved my life. And the best of all time was at a bar, like Irish pub, and I walk up there, and this guy who had to have been like from the old country just looks at me and says, "Sorry, no Scots allowed." So every day is an experiment. It's a chance to learn more. This is the comic strip Adventures in Name Tagging, named after my favorite 80s movie starring Elizabeth Shue. And I want you to think about what you do every day as an experiment and as a statement. The statement I'm making in this image is, I have identity issues. This is the name tag for the visually impaired. But what's interesting is in New York, I'm not from New York, but I moved there, so wearing a name tag, it's like the 10th weird thing New Yorkers have seen that day. So people still interact with it, but it's not strange, because there's always someone weirder than you. So what is your name tag? What is it that you do that's all of these things? If you guys are still with me, say cool. Cool. College. Raise your hand if you graduated from college. Keep your hand up if you don't remember anything. Me too. I remember on graduation day, May 5th, 2002, it was a long night, and I remember my parents showed up. But they were the only ones at the graduation ceremony whose parents were wearing name tags too. Scott's mom, Scott's dad. And not pictured in this image was my girlfriend at the time. Her name tag said Scott's, S-C-O-T-T apostrophe S. Aww. It didn't work out. Hello, my name is Scott Free. But my parents are there, and it's been a couple years, but I was graduating, and I had this thing like, I'm going to write this book, and I'm going to wear a name tag forever. And I say to them, Mom, Dad, I'm going to wear a name tag every day for the rest of my life. And they responded with a 4-letter word. And on the count of 3, I would like you to just yell out, what 4-letter word would you say if that was your kid who said they wanted to wear a name tag 24/7? 4 letters, what would you say? 1, 2, 3. Nuts. Yeah, so that's what I thought. I thought they were going to kind of freak out, and I thought my dad was going to look at me and be, I have no son. Because apparently my dad's from Telemundo. But they didn't respond in this overly terrifying way. The 4-letter word they said was And I was like, what? Because there was a different four-letter word I was kind of expecting. But that's just my parents. That's their attitude. That's the way that they approach their people, me. Now, one of the advantages that I've always been fortunate enough to have are parents that were non-judgmental and that would say cool if you did something crazy, because at this point they knew I was out of my mind, so they were already saying cool. But the question I want you to think about is when a customer walks up to the counter or emails you or calls you 10 minutes after you close and they ask you what maybe seems like a dumb question or an outlandish suggestion or a request, what's the first word out of your mouth? Can I get this tomorrow? No. Or what? Or security. What's the first thing out of your mouth when people bring crazy ideas to your doorstep? That's what being approachable is. And so this example of my parents, that's kind of their language. And here's the first discussion for today. I want you to take a couple minutes and share with the people next to you. I want you to talk about your trademark language. Because when someone walks in the door, when you're interacting with people, the best way to prove your approachability is through the words you say. And I'm not talking about verbal tones and body language is 55%, that's all crap. I'm talking about the physical language. You're branding your language. Excuse me, because in a retail environment, there's two questions that always get asked as soon as people walk in the door, and it's the two worst questions anyone could say. The first one is, how are you? And most people just say, which is a lie. Because fine isn't a word, it's an acronym for feelings I'm not expressing. Because no one's fine. Kids come home from school. How was school? Lie. People don't want to share because they haven't been given permission. There's not something to open them up. And then the other question that no customers want to hear is, can we help you find something? Because most customers are going to say, well, we're just lie. They just say, we're just looking because
They're looking to buy.
they're looking to buy, and they're not ready. They just want some space. Let me breathe. And so what do you say at your store, on the phone, in your enterprise? I want you to share with whoever's next to you. I'm not going to assign you groups and number you off. We're all grown-ups. We can do this. Take a few minutes. Talk to the people around you. What is your trademark language? And then when the music stops, so do you. What is your trademark language? What do you say that no other stores say? The customer walks in there, what is it that you say that they go home and put on Facebook because it was so great that it made their day? Who would like to share just some examples that you said or that someone next to you said? What are some of the languages that you guys talked about? Just raise your hand and we can yell it out, whatever you had. Or I can just stand here like an idiot, whatever. Okay, tell me more.
We buy all our metal from one of 4 third-party certified
Cool.
suppliers that only produce their metal through recycled sources.
Right.
ethically.
Okay, so they are a sustainable organization. They buy from people who work with metal that do it in a recycled way. That's awesome. That's something worth sharing. Who else has trademark language that they like to use with their customers? Yes?
We make everything in the store ourselves.
Okay, good. She said, we make everything in the store ourselves. And that answers a lot of those skepticisms that people might have of where is this physically coming from. And that shows that you care because they do it right there. Thanks. These are awesome. What else?
First is, when they start out, can you, we immediately say yes.
Oh, wait, this is great. When they start out a question with can you, they immediately say yes. That's huge. Anytime we can respond with a foundation of affirmation, we win. And another word that always works to buy you time if you don't know what to say is, wow. Anything someone says, like, we don't have a lot of money. Wow. Well, we're looking to get married next year. Wow. So if you don't know what to say, just say wow, and that buys you like 4 seconds. Let's get 3 more. Trademark language. What else did you come up with? If you're laughing, you have to share. What else did you come up with?
Pets are welcome in our store.
Okay, your pets are welcome in the store. Is that a common thing that jewelry stores won't allow pets? Huge. So think of this as a great chance to look at the customers of the customers. 2 more. Trademark language. I'm sorry?
I said Tux is here because she said about dogs, and we have customers coming into our store and saying, is Tux here? That's our dog.
The owner has a dog.
Okay, so the owner has a dog, customers coming to look for it, so tell them right away, Tux is here. That's great. Give them what they want. You could actually have Tux wearing maybe some of the jewelry. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, he tries to eat it.
Oh, never mind. Let's get one last one. Trademark language ideas. Yes.
Humor.
Okay, she said humor. How about an example?
People say, oh, how are you doing today? I say, well, I'm a little sleepy. I woke up at 4 a.m. I would have slept longer, but the bartender was being a jerk.
And that's perfect. And it's just about thinking, what are the 10 most common questions that every customer asks, and what are the worst answers they want to hear, and what could we say instead? A lot of times when I work with retailers, I tell them to make a list in the back or by the cash register. Put a do and do not say. Instead of this, say this. Instead of this, say this. People remember it, and it works. So I appreciate all those suggestions. So when I did this, I never went to the career fair. I just hired myself and got to work. And this was 2002. And I wrote this first book at that time, and I had no idea at the time that it wasn't a book, it was a brand. And this is something we all need to be careful of. Any business owner, the first thing that you put out there, whether it's a website or a product name or a company name, whether or not you like it, that's the brand. And you have to be careful what you put out there because you don't want to brand yourself into a corner. So I moved from Ohio to Oregon, and I actually had a short stint in the retail world working here. If anyone's ever been to Portland, Oregon, this is City Liquidators Discount Furniture Warehouse, one of the finest retail establishments in the world where you can purchase such items as the lip couch. You think we ever sold these? Actually, we would get close to selling them because it's so fun to sell a product like this. Because when customers come on the floor, Noah wanted to show you this couch here. This is the lip couch. It's the only piece of furniture in the world that will literally... And yet we still never sold it, but it didn't matter because it was fun. We had to sample the merchandise. I got in trouble for sleeping on the job, but my excuse was I was trying it out to become better product informed. That didn't work. But when you work in retail, especially if you're doing a lot of customer service, you kind of make faces like this because in the retail world, sometimes you got to deal with customers like this. This is Andre and Skippy. Skippy was the guy. And they would come in, he was a designer, and they would come in every Tuesday to buy stuff for their clients. And so working in the retail world for only a short while, I started working there to raise some money so I could print my book. And while working it there, I would take the bus home every day. Now, the interesting thing about the bus is how it changes from city to city. I live in New York now. If you go on a bus or a subway, nobody talks. It's like bad form. You get your iPad in and then you got something in your hand. I mean, no one talks, no one even engages with each other. In Portland, it's different. Everyone says hi, probably because everyone is high. But when you go on the bus, there's a level of engagement there. And I recall, this is like early December 2002, and it's right before the publication of my first book. And I meet a guy on the bus, and we just start talking, and he works at a law firm downtown, and I just kind of told him about the whole name tag thing. And he said, oh, really? Cool. Tell me more. And that's one of the best responses you can get when you meet anybody. Tell me more. That's a buying question, even if they don't think they're buying anything. And they've also given you conversational permission. Tell me more. Oh, really cool. Let's hear more about that. And so I tell this guy about it, and by the end of the conversation, he says, well, let's exchange business cards. I tell you what, when your book comes out, I'll buy you a beer, we'll celebrate. I'm like, cool, sounds good. He's cute. So he gets off the bus, and I never saw him again. He never called. Typical guy. But about a week later, I get a phone call that would change everything. It was a phone call from the reporter of the Portland Tribune newspaper who wanted to do a feature article about my upcoming book release. And she said, would you be interested? No, I have stuff to do, sorry. And so we got together, we did this article, and then 2 days before the release of my first book, this came out. This is the first piece of press I ever did in my life. And it was in the second largest non-daily paper in the country, which apparently went out on the newswire to all the media outlets and CNN and USA Today. And not too long after that, I found my way on CNN with Anderson Cooper. Before he was Anderson Cooper 360. He is what I like to call the silver stallion. And when I was on this show, I recall in the green room before going on the air, the producer came in and he said these two things that are like scarred in my brain. The first was, now Scott, I know you've never done an interview before, so just try to relax, like have fun, be yourself, and forget about the fact that 10 million people are watching. Okay. Oh, and by the way, the other thing is, just make sure when you're doing the interview, never look at yourself on the monitor. You would have done that too, though, because you're looking at yourself, look at yourself, it's weird. The crazy part is I wasn't looking at me. I was looking at underneath me, because when they interview people on the news, they have the person's name, but right below their name, they have their what? Right. Here's what they gave me. Four years of college, right there. And it was a good lesson. If we don't make a name for ourselves, someone will make one for us. And there's a bigger question, though, because it's not just what's in a name, like Shakespeare asked in Romeo and Juliet. It's so much more. There's something called name equity I want you to be thinking about. Not brand equity, name equity. I'm talking about your physical name, your company's name, the website, the product's name, the names of what you sell. What comes after it? What do people say after your name? What do they say before your name? What do people think when they hear your name speak? When they look on Google Maps and they see the name of your store, what physically do they feel when they see the name of that? When they go online and they Google for Yelp and they see a review of your store, how much equity do you have in their brain? That's what name equity is. And I want you to think about how people react when they see that. Here's my mother watching this, publicist at the time, and when she saw it, she came up to me and she literally said, "Name tag wearer, really?" She's like, "I'm so proud." And so this book is what I was promoting at the time. I saw it at a book fair not too long after that for the low price of, take a guess. $3, thank you, that's very kind. It was a quarter. But there was a woman next to me who, I guess I was like wearing the same shirt or something, and she saw it, and she's like, "Is that you?" I said, "Yeah, this is actually my book." And she goes, "How much is it?" And I said, $1. And she said, "Well, if you autograph it, I'll buy it from you." So I pocketed the money. Sorry, St. Louis County Library. But then I saw it on sale on eBay for $2.99, so it appreciated in value, although the shipping was more than the book itself. Oh well. And the stupidest mistake I made that 10 years ago would be a lot different than it is now. But on eBay or on Amazon, when you buy something, you can leave what? Reviews. So I thought, I'm going to leave a review of the book. This is the greatest book ever written. Scott Ginsberg is a genius. But I forgot to change the username on my review bar. So it says reviewed by Scott Ginsberg. I'm like, damn it. But this was pre-Yelp. This was pre any of the review sites. So now it's 100 times more powerful. I wonder what reviews exist about you. And there was a lesson because in this book, I had this idea about the fortune cookies. I love the fortune cookies. Isn't it the greatest to play the game when you take out the fortune and what do you write at the end of it? In bed? Yeah, it's the best. If you've never done that, try it tonight. What's cool about fortune cookies is no one cares about the cookie. They just want the fortune. And so when the book came out, I thought maybe there's a way I can apply that to my business. Because maybe there's something in the back of the book that people would want more than the book itself. And if it's the only book in the world ever written on name tags, the most obvious thing to put in the back of the book is... And people loved it. They would give them to their friends, they'd put them on, and it sort of went viral before viral was viral. And it sold a ton of books and it raised a bunch of word of mouth. And so I want you to be thinking about what's your fortune? What's your cookie? What's the free prize inside? Maybe it's Tux, maybe it's the dog that people want to see more than the jewelry itself. What is it that you have that people just can't wait to go see? One of my heroes is Andy Dufresne, and in the greatest movie of all time, Shawshank, he writes a letter every week to get money for the Brooks-Haddon Library, right? And they eventually give him the books. Well, I thought if the name tag company who makes this, if they knew who I was, maybe I can get some sponsorship. So I start writing them letters every month telling them about the whole thing and how I'm all over the news and I can promote their product, blah, blah, blah. And you know what they said? Nothing! But the interview with Anderson Cooper, he asked me, so Scott, where do you buy your name tags? I'm like, oh, don't mess this up. And I go into this whole pitch about how great they are. And then, if that was you, what would you do with a copy of that interview? Well, back in 2002, you would take the VHS tape, send it to the marketing department, which I did. And 2 weeks later, 10,000 name tags were waiting at my doorstep. Now, how would that be different today? You're on the news, and you mention something that you can send to someone. Instead of sending them the tape, you would just do what? Send the link, email it, tweet it, share it on Facebook. So never underestimate the power of mentioning someone you want something from and sending it to them. Because sometimes the best thing we can do is take someone else and put them up in lights and broadcast who they are and just say, hey, I mentioned you in front of everyone I know. It's a great, gentle reminder trick for sales. And so things started to happen. This guy, Harold Jenkins, look at that coat. Is that the sexiest jacket you've ever seen? Harold was the 92-year-old director of the Portland Rotary Club. And he called me up and had seen me on the news and wanted to have me do a presentation. And I said, sure, it sounds great. What's a Rotary Club? And he explained it to me. A Rotary Club is an organization, a civic club, with people like Harold, you know, average age deceased. And he wanted me to do this presentation for about 20 minutes. So I go in there, I do this talk. First talk I'd ever given in my life. And when it was over, I did the biggest mistake you make in a presentation is when it's over, you go, so, any questions? And it was just silence. Never end a presentation with so many questions. And Harold, though, he raises his hand. He says, Scott, do you have a job? I'm like, yeah, I sell furniture. The whole book thing I'm just doing on the side. And he said, you should quit. And I thought, wow, it's another one of those four-letter words, like they're haunting me. But when a guy like that said quit, I thought, here's an opportunity to take advice from someone who might know better. And it's one of those moments where in a sales situation, in a mentoring situation, sometimes we have to kind of pull people close and look them in the eye and say, you got to do this. I believe in you. You got to give people the shove. And it's a hard thing to do. But in a mentoring situation, you have to tell people, I believe in you, you can do this. Sometimes in a sales situation, you got to pull people in and say, you got to do this. You can do this. You're ready. Let's buy this. Come on. And you just got to give people the shove. To shove people is to love people. Not down the stairs, but to shove in that emotional way. And so when people make a decision, everything happens. That's the greatest part. That's what I did. I made a decision. I'm going to stop slinging couches, remove what robs me, embrace what excites me. And it was from that moment I knew that there was something other than selling couches that I had to do. And so this is going to lead us to our next exercise of the morning. This here's downtown Portland, Oregon. And I was waiting for the train to take me to the airport. At this time, I was going to New York. So this is April 29th of 2003, and I'm en route to New York to do an interview on the Today Show with Matt Lauer and Katie Couric. I hate Katie Couric, but they were paying for the flight. So I was reading the USA Today, and I want to show you the headlines, because these headlines are powerful. So take a look at 10 headlines. Don't worry about me. Just take a look at the screen, and just think about what these headlines suggest about the world 9 years ago. Yeah, that was a sad day, I know. Yeah, that's kind of what I said. And I was thinking about all these TED headlines. And not only did I think to myself, there's no turning back, because this would become the big tipping point of the entire career, but then I started thinking about what that says. And now, 9 years later, I've been thinking about you guys, about headlines, about what's going on in the media and how that affects the people that you deal with every day. So when a customer walks in the door or engages with you in any way, online or offline, whatever headlines they've read that morning or heard on the news or got on their Twitter feed or saw on their Facebook stream, those news items are going to affect the way that you interact with them. And so what I'd like you to discuss for our next exercise is to talk about how do whatever headlines, whatever media people are exposed to, how does that affect your approach in a store environment and the way that you communicate with them? What do you need to know about this, and how does that change the way you interact? Okay, everybody got it? When the music stops, so do you. Let's talk about where they come from. First of all, what are some of the headline items that immediately affect your duty in selling jewelry? Price of gold, huge. What else?
Blood diamonds.
Blood diamonds, right?
Some people hear about jewelers doing something not.
Yeah, it's negative stories about jewelries. What else? News items that might affect their buying decision.
Pop culture, what's going on, VMAs, red carpet.
Yeah. VMAs, red carpet. We just had the VMAs, actually. Yeah.
Stock market.
Stock market, yeah, and the economy for that matter. So let's talk about how that affects you. Knowing what these people know or have read, what does that affect? How does that change what you do?
You can better steer the conversation.
Good. Better steer the conversation. Know what objections might be related to those headlines. What else is going on in your head? What do they not want to talk about? The negative, right. Exactly. I mean, if you think about it, let's go back for a minute. So if you look at these, we have 10 headlines. One is positive, unless you hated Buffy. But for the most part, like, one is positive. So I look at this as an example. If you have a 90%, 10% ratio of positive, negative, what if you could be the 10% positive? What if on a day of just being assaulted by negativity, your store was the beacon of light of positivity? People notice that. People remember that. And so if you look at the USA Today, I'm sure the headlines would not be that different from 9 years ago. It'd be instead of Buffy, it'd be Kardashian, and instead of Iraq, it'd be Afghanistan. But other than that, it wouldn't be that different. And what's interesting is in 2003, when all of this media attention fortunately came my way, I wasted it. Because again, this is 2003, so there was no Twitter, and Facebook was new, and Google was kind of new, so it couldn't have the leverage that it should have now. So imagine that tomorrow your company was featured on all these outlets. Let's talk about some of the positive ramifications of this. What would happen in your business? Just yell it out. Increase of what? Sales, what else? Online, what would happen? Tons of traffic, maybe more orders, interactions, phone calls, all of the above. When this happened to me, I got none of that. I didn't sell a single book. I didn't have any leverage because I wasted all of this. It was like this tsunami of media attention came my way, and I just watched it go by. And the reason is because in 2003, I didn't have this. And that's one of the things is that we would love to all be featured in the media. We'd love to have our site crash because we have so many users. But we need to be ready to cope with that amount of attention. And that's one of those big lessons is we need to be ready to leverage. Leverage is one of those physical terms. I was never a science guy, but leverage is always making the most out of whatever investment you have. And so the key is now, anytime anything happens in a positive way, especially with the media, it's your chance to leverage it. Anytime you get featured in the media, you email your 20 best customers and send it to them. Hey, we were featured in the media and we couldn't have done this without your help. Thank you. That's it. Not, oh, by the way, will you come buy stuff? But anytime you get connected with the media, it's the answer to the question, now that I have this, what else does this make possible? Now that I have this, what else does this make possible? That's the greatest leverage question in the world. What 20 people who can give me money can I send this to? That's leverage. And so instead of getting sales and traffic, I just got hate mail. Tons of hate mail. Still get it, not as much. But yeah, that first thing, I got all this hate mail, and I started collecting it because I thought to myself, maybe one day that hate mail will come in handy. And today is that day. So let's look at what people said almost 10 years ago. This is by far the most ridiculous and pointless idea I've ever heard of. Why would anyone wear a name tag? You are nuttier than a bag of trail mix. Okay, I admit, that's pretty clever. I hope this is a joke. This has to be the lamest shite I've ever had the displeasure of reading. This is the stupidest idea anybody could have come up with. Look at me, everybody, I wear a name tag. You're an egotistical loser that has no life that would probably buy cigarettes for 13-year-olds. What? They were 14. But when haterade comes your way, we're all going to experience this, and it's so different now, because instead of getting hate mail now, how will people give a store negative criticism? They're going to Yelp it. What else might they do? They're going to tell people. How do they tell people? Facebook, Google, Twitter, all of the above. You ever had bad service and tweeted it with the hashtag of the company that screwed you over? It's fun to try just to see if they write back. Oh yeah. And most of the time they do. Like I went to REI and they were just kind of jerks. And I said, hey, at REI NYC, hey guys, thanks for not treating me respectful. I appreciate it. And they wrote right back, oh, we're so sorry. What happened? I was like, oh, wow. Are you listening? Because people can easily and quickly, and to millions of people, do this without you even knowing about it, unless you have a listening platform. That's the whole point about social media, which I'm not an expert on. Just because I'm under 40 doesn't mean I'm a social media expert. The whole thing is social media is not a sales tool, it's a hearing aid. It's a listening platform to find out what people are saying, what people want. You ever Twitter search, I hate this jewelry because? That's fun, I did it last night, you should try it. Just wonder what customers are saying about the jewelry they hate. Might be interesting things to know. And the cool part is that it doesn't matter how many people don't love you. The goal is to please the people that are your people. My brother used to give me a hard time. He was like, I don't like your website. I don't like that picture of you on the front of it. I was like, that's fine. You're not my customer. Are you okay alienating the people who aren't going to buy? If you're afraid to polarize, you might not monetize. Plus, if people are trying to shoot you down, it just means that you're big enough to be a target. And on the other hand, this whole concept of people getting targets, it can go in a negative way. I'm not sure what the rate of robbery and the rate of crime as it relates to jewelry stores, but I imagine it's a lot different than other industries because it's such a high-priced item. And so there is this danger of being too approachable. I used to have a stalker. Years ago, I had this guy that would call me every day, leave these creepy messages, and like I changed my phone number, and he showed up at my house and like just scared me to death. He just wanted a copy of the book, I think. I think he had like an ice pick in his hand, but this guy would just keep calling because I never knew how to sort of draw that line. And I want you to be thinking about, for our next discussion, where you draw the line. Because it's easy to be too approachable. It's easy to overwhelm people with too much service. Now, some companies just do this way too much. Like if you say my pleasure at every single answer, eventually it doesn't seem like it's your pleasure. My pleasure, my pleasure, my pleasure. Is it? There's got to be a way that each of you can draw the line. So I would like you to talk about with each other, what happens? What are the dangers in a store environment when you're too approachable interacting with customers? When the music stops, so do you. What are just some of your just pet peeves, annoyances when retail people are too approachable? What do they do that drives you crazy? Nothing. Come on. They hover. Just sort of, yeah. What else do they do?
They expect you to make concessions for them.
They expect you to make concessions for them. Good example. What else? Drives you crazy at a retail store.
Once they figure out how to find you after hours, they do it.
Ooh, figure out how to find you after hours. And sometimes that's an unwelcome invasion. My thing is you get greeted before you step in the door. Like the door opens and, hello, welcome everybody. That's just... Certain stores have training where they don't greet anyone until they're 5 feet into the store. I like that. What else do you see drives you crazy?
I hate it when they're like following, it's like the automated customer service unit.
Yeah.
It's like I went to work in the bank and been waiting because they're always in trouble for stuff. And the person that's helping me does the spiel, welcome to blah, 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 bank, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like walking out, I've finished my transaction.
Right.
I'm halfway to the door and she's still finishing the spiel.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those things where protocol overcomes common sense. Because like, oh, I have to say this 10 times today or I'm going to get demerited. Or the fact that the person's out the door, just let it go. What other things drive you crazy that retailers need to stop doing?
Sometimes they'll follow you around and touch all the things that you've touched and rearrange them.
They'll follow you around, touch all the things you touch, and rearrange them. How do you think that makes people feel? Annoyed, maybe that you don't trust them. Other things drive them crazy.
Too pushy.
Okay, give me an example of being too pushy with a customer.
I used to work at the Buckle, a clothing store at the mall,
Uh-huh.
and I was trying to be pushy, like follow the customer around and like, have you seen this now? It might be really, really
Yeah.
happy and try to push it on.
Good example. Let's get a couple more. 2 more examples. Too rehearsed, yeah, and customers can tell, right? Too scripted.
I think it's a double-edged sword because you want to be approachable, and then, on the annoying side of it, it's like, okay, that's enough. You don't have to tell me all about that.
Yes.
But then the other side is you really want to be a part of the positive emotional side. So
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the hard part. It's one of those equations that we all have to solve for ourselves because every personality is different for you and every customer is different. We can't type customers into the 4 different buying types and Myers-Briggs, oh, he's an ENFJ, so I won't say a lot. We can't resort to that. We just have to treat people as human beings and sort of try to read every interaction in that way. Otherwise, we lower that trust level, we lower the comfort level, and they're going to walk out, and then 2 hours after they leave the store, they're just going to go buy it online from someone else. You don't want that to happen to you. Figure out where you draw the line. Because at this point, having gone through this sort of media explosion and stalkers and it kind of started the business, I started to hear people say, okay, so how long do you plan on doing this? And you hear this a lot. Has anyone owned their own business in the room? Entrepreneur, enterprising people, cool. So when you are in this situation, you don't always make money immediately. It's actually not common to make money for a couple years for a lot of businesses. So what you'll see is, maybe it's your family, friends, or people you talk to, like, so how long are you going to do this? Which is just another way of saying what? When are you going to get a real job? When are you going to join the rest of the world? Like, when is your crazy college experiment going to end? And right. I heard a lot of this. I was at a bachelor party one night, and a friend of mine who towards the end of the night was pretty drunk, and one of those guys that when they drink, they get philosophical. And he starts saying, like, the whole name tag thing is really great, but you're not really going to keep doing this, are you? Like, it's not a unique idea. Anybody could have done that. I could have done that. Of course, he was 7 beers in. I'm 7 Diet Dr. Peppers in, so. I get home, and I remember having trouble sleeping that night because I kept thinking, like, maybe this is just a big joke and anybody could have done this. And I share this story with my dad the next day, and again, with the 4-letter words, that's just, I guess that's how my parents talk. And I tell my dad this story, and I was like, what should I do? I thought he would say what the same guy at the Rotary Club said, which was quit. But instead, my dad said the one word that always kind of lets me know where I stand. He goes, putz. Which is just the Jewish way of saying you're an idiot. And then he said, listen, anybody could wear a name tag, but you're the only one that made a career out of it. Ideas are free, but only execution is priceless. Dad, I am stealing that, and I'm going to use that as a book title. And he said, as long as you give me 50%, fine. And that's the whole thing. You come to conferences like these, you go to the sessions, you go on the floor, and you get to go to the booths and interact with people. You're filling your pages and your notebooks and your iPads with different ideas when you go to conferences. But the reality is, you don't need more ideas. You need an I did. Somebody comes in with an idea to buy jewelry. That doesn't pay the bills. The I did. I bought it. I put the down payment down. The I did. It's not just for you, it's for the customers. It's about the execution of it. And it's moving from idea to execution that is the way businesses are built. I got a piece of hate mail a few years ago that it said, Scott, the whole name tag thing is so stupid. All you are is the name tag guy. All you're ever going to be is the name tag guy. How does that make you feel? And the 4-letter word I wanted to say was rich, but I couldn't, because I didn't make any money for the first 3 years of my business. And I thought maybe it's because I haven't committed. And so after getting that email, I thought, I wear a name tag every day, but not technically I can't wear it 24/7 unless I commit fully and get a permanent one. So I did. This answers the question about the beach and the shower. Some people don't think it's real, and I understand that because it does kind of look like a Sharpie. But I'll tell you something, that ain't no Sharpie. It hurt like hell. I don't care what people say, tattoos, oh yeah, tattoos don't hurt at all. Liars! How committed are you? Now, I'm not suggesting that later on tonight, everybody goes downtown and gets their company logo tattooed across your chest. Terry's already got that, so he'll show it to you later. You know, this whole concept of having the tattoo, it's changed the whole level of commitment. This is a commitment device. Everyone in this room needs a commitment device. I mean, is that not what an engagement ring is? It's a commitment device. If you like it, put a, just making sure. But you sell commitment devices, you need to wear them too. You need to have something that shows your customers that you're committed to them. You don't need a tattoo, you don't need a name tag, but you need something. And so having this has sort of opened up this whole world of fascinating interactions. I did a presentation a few years ago at Optimist International. So it's 1,200 people over the age of 70. And in the front, there was all these women wearing these red hats. I later learned what that meant. And when I showed this image, they all took their hats off and started going, "Let's see the tattoo!" I was like, settle down, ladies. And I had the mic on, so I couldn't, strip on stage. But I said, well, look, I'm going to sign some books after the presentation. So if you want to meet me back at the table, I'd be happy to show you the tattoo for $5. And so I was kidding when I said that. They weren't. By the time I got to the back, there was a line of silverbacks around the corner, digging through their coin purses, pulling out $5 bills. Let's see some skin. I raised $400. And I couldn't keep the money because it's prostitution. So instead, I decided that I would donate it to a charity. Because I figured that's like the moral thing to do. So I actually started my own charity. It's called Stripping for Seniors. 501c3. But if you think that's bad, the challenge with when we commit, whatever commitment device we have, especially now in the digital world, people will challenge us on it. The tattoo started to show up in various publications and Flickr pages and newspapers and blogs, and Mummy Diaries, and Ugliest Tattoos, the Gallery of Regrets, and Sucks or Rules. It's the name tag tattoo versus the periodic table of element tattoo. I mean, I guess that's the only way to really remember it. And then the worst one is a friend emails me. He goes, "Hey, have you heard of this publication called Co-Ed? It's a family publication, but I think you might want to go look at it. They have this thing called 210 WTF, were they thinking tattoos? I think you might want to click on this link." And I thought I might be in the company of people like this, tattoos like this, and this. So apparently I wasn't just on the list, I was selected as a spokesperson for the list. Yeah, I should have waxed. But the bright side is, I'm not as bad as this dude, or this guy, or this guy. Backstreet Boys, really? That's not a place for friends, I'm sorry. And this guy. There's always someone weirder than you, right? But the suggestion is, the internet is forever. In the words of the wise philosopher, Squints Palladorus, if you've seen The Sandlot, say it with me, forever. Everything matters, everybody's watching, and everything's a performance. And so any interaction you have, it could become public in 5 minutes. That's why consistency is so important. I remember I was in the hot tub one time, and I'm talking to this guy next to me, and he sees my name tag tattoo, and he says, "Hey, is that like a name tag tattoo?" I said, yeah, it is. He goes, that's crazy. I heard about a guy that wears a name tag all the time. Have you ever heard of him? And you'd be amazed how often this conversation happens, like maybe once every few months. And usually I'm like, It's probably me. But for whatever reason, I thought maybe I should play dumb. Because sometimes we need to play dumb to hear what people really think. And I said, no, tell me about this guy. Oh, yeah, so he wears a name tag all the time. It was some experiment or something, and I think he wrote a book or whatever, and he's in like Guinness Book of World Records for wearing a name tag. I'm like, really? And I am like 4 feet in front of this guy, half naked, and he goes, yeah, I think his name was Scott or something like that. I don't know. I'm right there, and he doesn't see it. And I just keep going, like, yeah? So whatever happened to that guy? And he goes, I don't know, I think he went crazy or something. But there's always this question of consistency of what we think about our brand versus what other people say about our brand, and it's not always the same thing. That's why consistency is far better than rare moments greatness, because it's always easier to be the same everywhere with everybody, because we never know. You'd hate for someone to read on Yelp a great review and get there and be underwhelmed. That's why we have to listen. We have to find out what people are saying so we know what the expectation is and we can exceed it. Wow is the distance between expectation and experience. Wow is the distance between expectation and experience. If you can explode that gap, you win. I write every single name tag by hand. And the reason, no, I'm OCD, but the other reason is because of consistency. This right here, that's the name tag reject pile. Those are the name tags that don't make the cut because I spelled them wrong. No, it's because they're not consistent. Because remember, it's not a badge, it's a what? It's a brand. How consistent is yours? I started in 2000 with the sticker, turned into a book, and then got the tattoo, and then I actually started making money. And when the commitment was solidified, it kicked open all the doors, and the business model started to expand. I started to get this question, what's your business model? How does your business work? And I kind of figured it out that most businesses have a business they're trying to build a brand for. I was the opposite. I had a brand I've been trying to build a business for. And for consistency purposes, sometimes it's easier to start with who we are and work from the outside as opposed to just selling something and later figuring out who we are. Because if we start with the values that we have as a person, as a business, as an organization, and we share those with the people that buy from us, that's the most consistent thing we can do. My company is called Hello, My Name is Scott. The people at the bank think I'm a stripper. I mean, I do have a lot of $1 bills, but still. It's one of those moments where when you hand your credit card to someone and they see the name of your company, what do they say? Like if I saw Absolute Brilliance, which is the name of his company, I would think, Absolute Brilliance, cool. I'm actually interested, like, what does that mean? What is the name of that company? No diamond picture. If it just said Absolute Brilliance on a corporate credit card and I saw it swiping his Coke, I would say, what do you do? That's a fun test. Later this weekend, when you buy things with your company credit card, see what the cashier does. If the cashier asks you a question or responds or reacts to the name of your company, you have something special. Use it. This is what I've done in 10 years. It's the whole enterprise. And I'm going to wrap things up here in a couple of minutes and get you guys down to the show floor. Before we do that, I want to let you know I've written a bunch of books. I brought a few of them to give out as early holiday presents. But the cool part is I'm not giving them to you. Guess who's going to give them to you? Santa. When you go downstairs in a couple of minutes to get down to the show floor, you're going to see Santa. And either today or tomorrow, if you talk to him, my books are there. And if you've been good this year, if you're on the right list, Santa might give you one of my books. And if he doesn't, just come to me and I'll give you one anyway. So it's been 4,329 days. And the adventure continues. I don't know what's next, what the next phase of the whole name tag thing is, but I do know that the first thing I asked you today was to look into here. What do you see? What do you see when you see people? It's the greatest question about approachability you could ever answer. And this whole session this morning, all the different slides that I've shared with you, kind of revolved around that question. What's your name tag? What's the thing that you do that they love, that they remember, that's yours? And this is something that I didn't necessarily learn from wearing a name tag. I actually learned it from my grandparents. Yeah, that's where I get it from. I want you to take a careful look at the scowl on my grandmother's face. This is 1984. This is pretty accurate of my grandparents' 62-year relationship. It's my grandpa doing something goofy and my grandma going, "Fake!" 62 years. In 1973, my grandfather started this company, Closeouts with Class. They worked in the wholesale industry. They would go to trade shows just like the one you're about to go to in a couple of minutes. And when they go to these shows, they needed something. They needed a way to engage with people that was memorable and unique, but consistent with the values that they started the company on. And so my grandfather thought, and this is, so goes the legend, this is before I was born, Closeouts with Class. Okay, well, if we sell wholesale goods, home goods, sporting equipment, what could we do that no one else would do that's consistent? So if that's their motto, if that's their logo, what outfits do you think they wore? Tuxedos, long tails, canes, hats, the whole thing. The entire staff, which by the way is just my family, they would walk around the whole trade show booth dressed in the finest tuxedos, top hats, and nobody was even close to doing this. This is back in the 70s. You might see the big collars and you might see various suits, but no one had tuxes. And everybody would come up and they would talk to him and they'd ask him questions, and my grandfather would say, "We're Closeouts with Class, classy products, classy people." That was it. That was their whole marketing department. Classy products and classy people. Because in the wholesale industry, especially where they worked, it was known as selling schlock, and it was junky products. And their differentiation was, we have class. The products are class and the people that sell them are class. And so they started getting recognized in the newspaper and they became one of the leaders in their industry, all hinging on the idea of class. And years later, almost 40 years later, my dad and my grandpa still got the tuxedos. My grandpa's the older one. And they always like to remind me what class means. And so I did a strategic planning session at their company. And one of the projects that I work on with my clients is called a strategic planning crusade. And it's taking who you are and memorializing it in a way that you can put on the wall as a piece of art. And so we took all their philosophies about class and put them on this map. It's in the trade show booth. Class is the new quality. That's how they roll. Like, you can get quality anywhere. You want class, you come to us. That's what they do. This is their name tag. Doesn't need to be a sticker, but it needs to stick. What is it that you do that is all of those things? My name is Scott. I wear a name tag every day of my life, and here's what it really says. I'm a human being, I'm a citizen of the world, and I belong everywhere. I believe commitment pays, consistency counts, and that anonymity is bankruptcy. But I also believe that consistency is far better than rare moments of greatness, and that ideas are free, but only execution is priceless. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being my friend. Have an awesome holiday season, and I'll see you on the show floor. Thanks.